Join me as we uncover the untold stories, the forgotten heroes, and the rich fabric of history that binds us all. Through this exploration of my family's past, we discover not only where we came from, but also the shared humanity that unites us across continents and generations. This is a journey of discovery, remembrance, and the enduring legacy of those who came before us. Welcome to Roots Across Continents, a journey through family history. In the fabric of human history, the stories of our ancestors are woven into the very fabric of our existence. It is through their triumphs and trials that we find our roots, our identity, and our connection to the past. In this documentary, we embark on a journey that traverses time and geography, focusing on the lives of my ancestors during pivotal moments in history. Starting with the tumultuous era of World War I, passing through the Great Depression, World War II, and ending in the 1950s, we will delve deep into the chronicles of my family tree, spanning continents, cultures, and centuries. The pursuit of historical research is a deeply motivating endeavor for me, driven by a profound curiosity about human experiences across time. It allows me to unravel the complexities and gain insights about past civilizations, societies, and individuals. As someone who is living away from his homeland, history helps me connect to the past of my ancestors to better understand our shared history. For me, history is more than just dates and facts. It is the story of humanity which gives me a sense of connection to the past of my family. We begin our narrative at the turn of the century just before the era of World War I. It is at this time that we find my paternal lineage now rooted in the United States of America, having transversed across the Atlantic from the sun-soaked hills of Italy. Meanwhile, across oceans and continents, my maternal ancestors in India navigated a different landscape during this pivotal period. While the American side of my family were living relatively ordinary lives, my Indian ancestors were enjoying a luxurious lifestyle surrounded by many riches generated from profitable farms in East Africa. This juxtaposition of experiences across my family highlights the diverse paths they've traversed during this era, each with its own unique challenges. Among the many members of my family, two stand out. Albert Benedict, a boxer turned bootlegger, and Saliboy Karimji Barodawala, an influential and wealthy political figure in India. In this section, we will study the lives of these two men and compare their experiences. Born on February 18, 1891 in Salerno, Italy, Alberto DeBenedictis was one of 10 children raised amidst the chaos of a large and loving family. In 1901, the family made the bold decision to move to the United States, traveling to America on the ship SS Columbia. The journey to America in those days was far from comfortable, and often passengers died on the journey from illnesses like cholera, typhus, and smallpox. Italians were not always welcome upon arrival in crowded cities like New York, and often they changed their names to better fit in. Alberto lightly adjusted his name to Albert and was commonly known as Al Benedict in most records. At a young age, Albert showed great promise as an athlete, attending Emerson High School in New Jersey, where he captained the football team, showcasing his athletic prowess. However, it was in the ring where Albert truly made his mark. Making his debut as a heavyweight boxer on March 17, 1910 against Jack Clancy in New York, Albert embarked on a career that saw him engage in approximately 40 bouts. His record shows a mixed bag of victories and losses, with 10 wins, 6 by knockout, and about 30 losses. He was a good but not great boxer, and it seems he was often a warm-up act for the top heavyweights to train with, such as Joe Ginette. By 1914, Albert was working as a chauffeur. During wartime, although drafted into the army, he remained stateside while many of his peers went to the front lines. The reason for this is unclear, but some athletes were given special assignments to boost troop morale that kept them away from direct combat. As a professional boxer, Albert may have been retained for entertainment purposes, allowing him to continue boxing in the military until the war ended in 1918. Following the war and his boxing career, Albert found himself in a different kind of arena. During the 1920s, alcohol was banned, and the period became known as the Prohibition era. While it is not exactly clear from records, we know that Albert operated a saloon. Whether it was a speakeasy or a licensed establishment is unclear. Prohibition-era saloons, gambling, and organized crime, often dominated by Italians, intersected during this era. Despite his involvement in this clandestine world, Albert never married but was a family man known for being close to the rest of the DeBenedictis clan in Union City, New Jersey. In September 1954, Albert DeBenedictis passed away at the age of 63. While my American family were immigrating to America, my Indian family, particularly during the early 1900s, achieved significant wealth and social prominence. In this section, we will be examining the life of one illustrious figure from my family at that time, my great-great-great-grandfather, Salibhai Karimji Barodawala. He was a distinguished individual in India, and by the end of the First World War, he emerged as a paragon of wealth and societal influence. Barodawala and his family were notably engaged in regional politics and were well established in their community and with the British Raj, who ruled India at the time. One of the key differences between the two sides of my family were their financial circumstances. While Albert DeBenedictis and his family were immigrants, struggling to make their way in a new country, the Barodawalas were exceptionally wealthy, possibly among the wealthiest families in India at the time. The Barodawala family created their wealth through merchantry, construction, and being ship chandlers. In fact, Barodawala's father was so successful in construction that his bust was carved onto the side of Victoria Terminus, a famous train station in Mumbai. While the exact figure of their riches cannot be determined, one can make some assumptions based on their actions during the First World War. Although Barodawala did not serve in the military, he was instrumental in raising a staggering 30 lakhs from his community to contribute to the British war loans without expecting any interest in return. This amount, now worth approximately 450 to 600 million rupees, reflects not only his financial prowess, but also the trust and the influence he commanded among the wealthy circles of India. If Barodawala was able to galvanize such support, it speaks volumes about the magnitude of his wealth and the esteem in which he was held. Furthermore, Salibhai Barodawala and his family lived in Altamont Bungalow on Amnesty Road. It is in this bungalow that Barodawala and his wife hosted many notable men and women of the time, such as Maharajas from princely nations and lords and ladies of the British Raj. Some examples are the Nizam of Hyderabad, regarded as the richest man in the world at the time, and the Maharaja of Patiala, who was frequently seen at his gatherings, accompanied by British nobles such as the Lord and Lady Windsor and the Lord and Lady Wellington. Lord Wellington was a British Liberal politician who served as Viceroy and Governor-General of India. He was described by my family as a great friend, and in a novel titled Lord Wellington in India by Victor Trench, published in 1934, Barodawala is referenced and quoted multiple times. For example, Barodawala is referenced saying, "The great part played by Your Excellency in the new reform scheme will occupy one of the brightest pages in the annals of this country," and was always referenced to as the Honourable Salibhai K. Barodawala. Possibly most extraordinarily, when King George V took a 5-week royal tour in 1911 in India, as a member of the Bombay Municipal Corporation, Barodawala was one of the few Indians who was presented to and greeted the royal monarchs. Barodawala was a nationally important businessman and politician. Before the war, Barodawala was made a JP, but his prominence grew significantly after the First World War and culminated in his election as Sheriff of Bombay in 1926. Barodawala had strong connections with various famous political figures, such as Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Barodawala continued his influence in politics by being a member of the Central Caliphate Committee, and competing in the election for a Mohammedan seat in the Indian Central Legislative Assembly, which was the lower house of the legislature of British India. In addition, Baroda was a key figure in the Muslim community and served on the Bombay Board of Censors in 1919, the Market and Garden Committee from 1932 to 34, and the All Indian Hidayat Committee in 1926. In 1910, he co-founded the Bombay Chronicle with Sir Firoza Shah Mehta, which was an important nationalistic newspaper. Barodawala also received many awards from the British. He was awarded the Royal Silver Jubilee Medal in 1935, and during the First World War, after funding a temporary theatre for soldiers, he received a war medal. Excluding his political career, my family has long speculated that Barodawala was a member of the secretive Freemasons Guild. The Freemasons' teachings enjoin morality, charity, and obedience to the law of the land, which are beliefs that Barodawala was known to uphold. In addition, my great-grandfather, who married Barodawala's daughter, was confirmed to be a member of the Freemasons. Therefore, combined with his significance in Indian politics at the time and the fact that my family was later involved in the guild, it is not hard to believe that Barodawala, my great-great-great-grandfather, was enlisted into the Freemasons. The legacy of my family and Barodawala still exists in India today. For example, a street in Mumbai that runs through what would have been my old family residence is named S.K. Barodawala Street. Apparently, Gautam Watsa, the secretary of the Altamont Road Area Citizens Committee, said that the road's name was later changed to S.K. Barodawala. We know he was a gentleman who owned several properties here, which was sold over the years. This, of course, refers to my great-great-great-grandfather, Salibhai Karimji Barodawala, and therefore confirms that the street was dedicated to him. This road is now the most expensive real estate area in Mumbai, and the Ambani family, the richest family in India, bought their plot from Barodawala's relatives to build their residence Antilla. This period of time shows how my ancestors' lives were vastly different, although they lived during the same time period. Personally, I find it intriguing that while one side of my family was rebuilding their life from the bottom up in America, the other was deeply engaged in the politics, governance, and the affairs of the state in a country on the other side of the world. The Great Depression, a period of unparalleled economic hardship that spanned the 1930s, not only altered the course of global history, but also left a mark on many individual lives and families, including my own. Like many other families, for my ancestors, this era was defined by immense challenges. This section should delve into the personal experiences of certain family members and how they survived the trials of unemployment, scarcity, and societal shifts. In this section, I will focus on one of Albert's brothers, my great-great-grandfather, Luigi DeBenedictis, later known as Louis, and how he navigated the challenges of the Great Depression in comparison to his brothers. Born in Italy on October 16, 1896, Luigi immigrated to the United States with his family in 1901 at just 5 years old. Upon arrival, he adopted the name Louis and began to build his life in America. This section will explore how Louis's choices and circumstances during the Depression diverged sharply from those of his brothers, reflecting the varied ways in which individuals within the same family responded to economic adversity. Federal censuses show that Louis was literate, meaning that he attended high school in America, and it is a good guess that he attended the same school as his brothers, Emerson High School. However, while his brother continued a career in professional sports, Louis instead worked as a saloon keeper in 1920. At 19 years old, probably just after getting his first job, Louis married Josephine Schaefer, a German woman. Their marriage would last over 50 years and they would have 5 children together. At the time of the Great Depression, Louis and his family lived in Union City at 524th Street. Louis rented his house and he paid $40 monthly rent. That's $640 in today's dollars. At this time, Louis worked as a police officer. As police officers were frontline workers and civil servants, there was a low chance that Louis would lose his job. Police officers were also paid considerably higher wages than an average worker. For example, in Manhattan, police officers were paid around $2,000 to $3,000 a year in 1930, which was considered a good wage for the time, as the annual salary for a worker was around $1,500 during the Depression. Due to some lingering anti-Italian prejudice and tensions between Italy and the US during the war, Italians not born in America were often barred from becoming police officers. Whether it was due to racism or to fear of them acting on behalf of the enemy, it is unclear. This likely prompted Lewis to alter his birth location on official records. His entire family are listed on a ship manifest in 1901 arriving in New York. Early census records and his World War I draft card, completed at age 15, all list his birthplace as Italy. However, later census records and his World War I draft card show his birthplace had changed to New York. Family anecdotes say that Lewis crossed the Hudson River into New York and paid someone to forge a birth certificate. Additionally, Lewis changed his last name to Benedict to further distance himself from Italian origins. Lewis worked as a cop for the rest of the Depression and for the rest of his career. His regular salary would ensure his family's survival during the Great Depression. In the 1950s, he was running a police athletic league in Union City for high school children called PAL. PAL's goal was to build positive connections between the youth and law enforcement through sports and other physical activities, and thus Lewis became very well known and liked in his community. Through the stories of my great-great-grandfather Lewis, we see that there were different paths that the working classes chose to survive the Great Depression. Lewis's decision to pursue a stable career in law enforcement, even going so far to alter his identity, ensured his family's survival during one of the most challenging periods in American history. In this section, we will be focusing on another of my relatives, Abdullahi Muhammad Ali Khaira, who was a senior partner in the Indian firm GM Muhammad Ali and Company, which was based in Ethiopia. The firm was extremely successful and was a key supplier of goods to the Ethiopian people. While Muhammad Ali Khaira might have the same name as the firm, the founder and owner of the firm was a different person. Khaira married Salabhoi Karimji Barodawala's daughter, which makes him my great-great-grandfather. Indians came to Ethiopia in increasing numbers as British subjects after the opening of Anglo-Ethiopian relations in 1897. Their presence drove Addis Ababa's early development following Emperor Menelik resolve to make his new capital the commercial hub of the empire. Thanks to their commercial skills, their ability to please Ethiopian tastes, and their historical access to Aden and Indian ports, they soon formed a large business community. The roots of GM Muhammad Ali & Co. can be traced back to its founder, another Muhammad Ali, Sheikh Sharaf Ali, an Indian merchant from Gujarat, born around 1860 to 65. The firm was established in 1886, initially focusing on the import and export business. Over the years, it grew to become one of the most significant trading companies in Ethiopia, dealing in a wide range of goods such as textiles, spices, coffee, wax, gold, hides, skins, and ivory. The firm not only facilitated trade between Ethiopia and India, but also established strong connections with other regions, including Aden and Djibouti. GM Muhammad Ali & Company's success was largely due to its ability to navigate the complex socio-political environment of Ethiopia. The company maintained excellent relations with Ethiopian rulers and nobility, a crucial factor in securing trade concessions and protecting its business interests. Ethiopian rulers, who relied on foreign traders for goods and services that were not locally available, saw firms like GM Muhammad Ali & Company as valuable allies. By the mid-1930s, the firm was at its peak, recognized as one of the largest trading entities in Ethiopia, with multiple branches across the country and offices in key locations such as Addis Ababa, Harar, Dire Dawa, and beyond. The shop that was set up in Addis Ababa still exists today, standing the test of time. Abdullahi Muhammad Ali Khaira likely arrived in Harar Ethiopia, as a 20-year-old migrant at the behest of Monsieur Sheikh Sharaf Ali, the firm's founder. He quickly rose through the ranks, eventually becoming a senior partner in the company. When Sharaf Ali left Ethiopia, it is believed that Kira took control of the firm, guiding it through some of its most prosperous years. Kira's influence extended beyond the business world. He was well connected with both Ethiopian and British authorities, a testament to his political and social acumen. One notable connection was his friendship with Lord Headley, an Irish peer who later converted to Islam. Kira, a Muslim himself, may have played a role in Headley's decision to embrace Islam, highlighting the cultural exchanges that often accompanied commercial relationships during this period.
आपका नाम क्या है?
जरीना सैफुद्दीन केरा બધું તો કેમ તને કહું
થોડું કહું લાઈફ કેવી હતી તમે સવારના ઉઠીને શું કરતા હતા
એવી આમ લાઈફ હતી અમને કંઈ ખબર જ નથી એટલી સારી લાઈફ કેમ સમજ કે આમ કોઈ રાજા નતા બી એની કુંવરી બી એવી નહીં
તો તમે આપના નાના શરફ અલી મોહમ્મદ અલી પૈસાવાળા હતા
પહેલાથી નહીં
હા
પહેલા તો એટલા ગરીબ હતા એક વખતે બહારથી આવા થાકીને આવા ને એના મધરને કે એને જમવામાં ખીચડી આપી તો કે મને જરા ઘી નાખી આપો તો પેલો દીકરાને કંઈ કમાડીનો છે ને એને ઘી જોઈએ છે એને એકદમ લાગી આવું જમા બી નહીં હાથ ધોઈને સ્ટેશન પર ચાલા ગયા જે પહેલી ટ્રેન મળી ને એમાં બેઠી ગયા બોમ્બે આવું બોમ્બેમાંના પૈસા ને કંઈ નહીં આપણે તો મુસાફરખાનો એમાં ત્યાં રહ્યા એમાં એને તો કોઈ અરબને સાથે દોસ્તી થઈ અને એ અરબ એને બહુ એકદમ પરમાનિત કે મને સર્વિસ નોકરી જોવે છે એ વખત તો નોકરી છે મને કંઈ આપો અમારા પાસે કંઈ નથી તો તમે લોકો મારા સાથે આવશો તા બીસીને મેં તમને આપું તો કહે તો એકદમ હા તાર વખતના મારા તો કે કા કઈ બી બાજુ મને ત્યાંથી ચાલા જવું તો એને લઈને ગયા ત્યાં એટલી પરમાનિકપણે રહેતા હતા તો એને બહુ માન હતું એના તરફ બહુ પછી ધીમે ધીમે ને કે મેં તો તને આપું છું સર્વિસ પણ તને જા થોડા પૈસા આપું છું યા તને બિઝનેસ કંઈ કરવો હોય તો ખાલી આમ નમક મરતા ને એવું એના પર પૈસા ને રહેવું બધું એકદમ પરચું ના બધું કરે હવે ત્યાં એ વખત પછી સિદ્ધપુર આવીને એને બધાને કહ્યું કોઈ બી મારી સાથે આવો મને એલપી ના અમે નહીં આવ્યા તો બધા તેરા પપ્પા એવી જ હાલત હતી તેરા પપ્પાને સ્ટેપ મધર હતા તો એને એટલું દુઃખ આપે તેરા પપ્પા અમને વાત કરે
That's mommy's daddy.
હા એટલું દુઃખ આપે ને કારણ કે સ્ટેપ મધર હતા એને પહેરવાની ચપ્પલ બી એકદમ તૂટેલી ને એવી આપે તે ગયા મારા નાનાજીના હા હતા એ લોકો બે જણા ધીમે ધીમે પછી મારા દાદાજી એ બી એવી રીતે વખતના મારા એ 3 જણા
એ લોકોના નામ શું હતા તો her નાનાજી was શરફ અલી મોહમ્મદ
અલી શરફ અલી હા ને અબ્દુલ્લાભાઈ મોહમ્મદ અલી કેરા
અબ્દુલ્લાભાઈ મોહમ્મદ અલી કેરા is મમ્માના daddy
મમ્મા અને મારા દાદા મુલ્લા બક્ષાભાઈ સરસાદ પેલા મોહમ્મદ ગના રાખતા હતા પેલા નામ આપણા મુસ્લિમ બોલ હવે શું પૂછવું પછી તો આપણું બધું ધીમે 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 પછી આપણું એટલું ખુદાએ આપવું એમ સમજ કે આપણા ત્યાં 16થી માંડીને કાર મળતી હતી 22 ઠેકાને આપનો બિઝનેસ હતો
22
હા મને લખેલું છે પણ કાં મુકાઈ ગયું છે ખબર બધા નામ છે બધા વખત મળશે તો મેં નામ ખબર હતી ને કા ઠેકાને આપણી દુકાન છે બધા મેં લખી લીધેલા હા તો 22 ઠેકાને આપણી બધી બિઝનેસ હતો ને પછી એમાં આપણે પછી આ લોકો એ તારો ક્વીન ને લોકો તો પેલા ચામડા એલે સલાસી એનો ફાધર પછી એલે સલાસી પેલા ચામડાના બધા આ પહેરે પછી આ લોકોએ બધું કર્યું કેરા પપ્પા જે મારા મતલબ કે તમે આમ અમારી બાપા કપડાં પહેરો આ તો ત્યાં પછી બોમ્બે બાજુ આખું જરી ભરેલા પેલા ડ્રેસ હોય ને રાજાના એવી રીતે તે લોકો બહુ ખુશ થઈ ગયા ને પછી મારા નાનાજીને તો એમ જ કહે કે આ મારો ગોડ ફાધર પછી એનો ફાધર બની પછી એલે સલાસે આવો ને તો એ વખત અમારા નાનાજીની ઉંમર બી થઈ ગઈ હતી યાદ તો કે એની ટાસ્ક ઓછી થઈ જાય જે વખત તો કે મોહમ્મદ અલીને બોલાવો પછી મારી એ મારા ગોડ ફાધર એ મારા પાસે લહેરા માથા પર પછી મને પહેરાવું. હા તો હસીના લાઈક સોનાનો ક્રાઉન આખું જોઈને કેટલા તોલાનો હશે કદાચ એટલો મૂકો. હા સોનાનો પ્યોર સોનાનો એટલે એના માથા પર મૂકો પછી એલે સનાસી એટલું માન હતું. બટ ગવર્મેન્ટનું આપણે બધા ટેક્સ માફ બધી એજન્સી એમાં જ આપણે એકદમ આગળ આવી ગયા. ખલાસ કાં થયા એમાં બી ઇટાલી પછી આપણે
શું કામ આવી ગયા છોડીને? શું કામ છોડીને આવી ગયા?
પછી આખું એના કબજામાં આવી ગયું એટલે સલાસીનું કંઈ રહ્યું જ ન.
ઇટાલિયન્સ કે
The end of an era, Italian occupation, and the closure of GM Muhammad Ali and Company. The fall of 1936 marked the beginning of the end for GM Muhammad Ali and Company in Ethiopia. The Italian occupation imposed numerous bureaucratic obstacles on foreign businesses, making it increasingly difficult for the firm to operate. Despite attempts to form a joint venture with the newly established Società Nazionale d'Ethiopia, the firm faced insurmountable challenges. On March 6, 1937, an expulsion order was issued, giving the company just 18 days to wind up its operations. Kira, who had received full powers from the Bombay headquarters to negotiate with the Italian authorities, played a crucial role in the firm's final days in Ethiopia. His testimony to the Italian officials in July 1937, in which he detailed his long residence in Ethiopia and his travels between Aden, Djibouti, and Ethiopia, underscores his deep involvement in the firm's regional operations. The expulsion order led to intense negotiations involving the British government, Italy, and the government of India. Although the Italians accused the firm of being involved in an attack on Viceroy Graziani, the real motive appeared to be economic, forcing the firm to sell to the Società Italiana per il Commercio con Africa. Despite the challenges, GM Muhammad Ali and Company managed to secure a relatively favorable outcome, largely due to the political influence of its leadership, including Kira. The firm was able to liquidate its assets with minimal losses, repatriating much of the proceeds to India. However, the firm's final exit from Ethiopia in March 1938 marked the end of an era. The closure of GM Muhammad Ali and Company raised concerns about the treatment of Indians in Ethiopia and reflected the broader context of the Indian independence movement. In this section, we will examine the world's most destructive conflict, the Second World War. The Second World War, fought between 1939 and 1945, was a global conflict that involved many of the world's major powers divided into two opposing military alliances, the Allies and the Axis. It was marked by unprecedented destruction, massive losses of life, and the reshaping of international borders and ideologies. The war not only altered political landscapes, but also deeply affected the daily lives of individuals across the globe, as nations mobilized their economies, industries, and populations for total war. Similar to Albert back in World War I did have a direct family member engaging in the military. My family served in the army during the conflict, fighting in the European theatre, and did play a role in liberating occupied territory from the German army. Just like in World War I, due to India's relationship with Britain, India was once again drawn into a global conflict. However, in contrast to the last war where my ancestors prospered, the Second World War only brought ruination. In this section, we will be focusing on the Second World War, and the family member I will be focusing on is the younger brother of Louis and Albert, Henry Angelo DeBenedictis. Henry was the youngest in the family, and unlike most of his family, he was actually born in the United States in 1912. There's a 25-year age gap between him and his oldest sibling. As Henry grew up in New Jersey and received a high school education, just like Albert and Louis, Henry probably attended Emerson High School, where he graduated around 1930-1931. Between high school and the outbreak of the Second World War, the federal census shows that Henry worked as an automobile salesman. He rented his home and paid $30 monthly rent. According to the census, Henry's income was around $1,100 in 1940. In April of 1935, Henry was living in Werghanken-Hudson, New Jersey. By the time the 1940 census was taken, Henry had moved to Ridgefield, Bergen, New Jersey. He enlisted into the army in 1942 at 30 years old. Unlike his older brother Albert, though, Henry did see some action in the war and was enlisted into the 28th Infantry Division and stayed the rank of private. The 28th Infantry Division traced their lineage back to the militia organized by Benjamin Franklin in 1747, known as the Associators, when Franklin organized artillery and infantry units to defend the city of Philadelphia against French and Spanish privateers. The 28th Division fought in many battles throughout American history, including the Spanish-American War in 1898. In the First World War, the 28th gained fame as a result of its gallant stand on July 15, 1918. As the division took up defensive positions along the Marne River east of Chateau-Thierry, the Germans commenced their attack with a fierce artillery bombardment. When the German assault collided with the main force of the 28th, the fighting became bitter hand-to-hand combat. The 28th repelled the German forces and decisively defeated their enemy. After the battle, General John Pershing, commander of the American Expeditionary Force, visited the battlefield and declared the 28th Division soldiers are men of iron and named the 28th his Iron Division. The 28th developed a red keystone-shaped shoulder patch, officially adopted on October 27, 1918. The 28th Infantry Division was mobilized in preparation for World War II in 1941. As they fought in the European theatre, Henry and most of the 28th Division were most likely shipped and then stationed in the UK in around 1942 or 43 to wait for the upcoming Normandy invasion in 1944. The first action the 28th saw in the war was when soldiers of the 28th Division stepped ashore at Omaha Beach on July 22, 1944. On August 29, 1944, the 28th Infantry Division had the honor of being the first American division to parade through Paris and later fought across northern France into Germany. As Henry had already enlisted into the 28th Division, while there are no records of him being in the first waves of Omaha Beach, he most certainly reached France through Normandy. The 28th Division continued with the rest of the US Army fighting the German forces across France and into Belgium, pushing the enemies back. One of their major battles was in autumn of 1944 when the 28th Division fought in the Hotkin Forest from September 1944 and culminated in mid-February 1945. The division itself took 1,100 prisoners, inflicted 4,000 enemy casualties, and destroyed 50 enemy armored vehicles. However, the battle lasted nearly 5 months and it cost the US Army more than 34,000 casualties. My great-great-uncle, Henry DeBenedictis, was one of these casualties. Details about where and how Henry was killed is scarce, but it is highly likely that Henry was killed in the Battle of Hurtgen Forest, as it was the only battle involving the 28th Infantry Division at the time. As military records say he was killed in action, it is likely that he was either killed in an artillery or bombing run, or possibly shot in a skirmish with retreating German soldiers. Regardless of how, Henry was killed in action on December 2, 1944 in Belgium, in the place where 14 days later the Battle of the Bulge would take place. In the last few hours before his death, Henry was probably wrapping himself in a wool blanket and huddling around fires to keep warm. Struggling to recall the day in August, 4 months earlier, when he had paraded through the streets of Paris to the cheers of millions. While my American great-grandparents were slowly improving their lives generation by generation, my Indian great-grandparents led a much different life. As part of my research, I was able to interview my great-grandmother Nirmat Asgawali Singaporewala, who was over 100 years old at the time I talked to her about her life and family history. She was born in 1924 in Bombay
which at the time was under British colonial rule. Her family were amongst the wealthiest in Bombay and likely in all of India. Nemrut grew up in a mansion on Altamont Road, which had numerous rooms, a large garden, tennis courts, and a swimming pool. Nemrut's family, including their mother, siblings, aunts, uncles, and cousins, all lived together in this expansive home. Nemrut's grandfather was involved in the oil and shipping business and was a prominent figure, serving as the sheriff of Bombay. The family imported fabrics from clothing from abroad and even had a tailor who made their dresses at home. They hosted regular tea and garden parties attended by notable guests such as the Maharaja of Kolhapur, the governor of Bombay, and occasionally senior officials of the British government. The family rented some bungalows to British families on their family's vast compound.
My name is Niamat Askari Singapore. I was born in Bombay, 1924, at my grandfather's house, Altamont Road, Kabala Hill. It was an old government house, very big house.
Who owned this house?
That was my grandfather, Salebhai Karimji Barodawala.
What did he do?
He was the sheriff of Bombay.
How many rooms did this house have?
Oh, that was not actually like bedroom you call, but we had so many rooms.
So it was a mansion with a big garden.
Yeah. Very big garden, tennis houses, swimming pool, everything we had.
So who else lived there with you?
Yeah, my masis, my mama, and my grandfather's brother were also living next to our bungalow. They had their bungalow.
Was your grandfather an important man?
My grandfather was very big man. He was sheriff of Bombay. He had many friends like Maharaja of Kolhapur, governor of Bombay, lady governor. They all used to come for the party.
With the dawn of World War II, Nemrut's family faced hardships just as many other Indians. Food was rationed and there were regular blackouts due to the threat of bombings by the Japanese. By this time, Nemrut was married and living in Bombay with her new family. Further compounding the family's economic issues, the Bombay dock explosion, one of the most powerful explosions recorded in human history, occurred on the 14th of April 1944. A British freighter, which among other cargo was carrying 1,400 tons of explosives, including 240 tons of torpedoes and weapons, caught fire and was destroyed in 2 giant blasts, sinking surrounding ships and setting fire to the area, killing around 800 to 1,300 people.
What were some of the difficulties you faced during the war?
We not used to get good food, very bad grain, no rice, no wheat, very bad to buy and get it washed, clean, and then eat.
So there was a quota that each family only got a certain amount.
Yeah, it was a quota. Even bread was in quota. So according to the card, to get their bread.
Did your family get more because of your status?
No, not like that. Everybody was same, not rich or poor. All was same.
What happened during the bombings?
The plane might come any time and throw bomb. So we had to put off the lights and curtain, close everything, blackout to get the signal. And after that signal, you have to put off all the lights.
This was after you got married and living with your husband's family?
Yeah.
Your husband's family were also well off. Tell us about the house you lived in.
It's a 4-floor building, very big building. It was known as Nassan Mansion, my father-in-law's name. And the whole 4th floor we were using, 6-7 rooms, full of all foreign things, beautiful carpets, chandeliers, everything.
And where did your husband's family live?
In Sattar, it is behind Mamadari Road. Yeah, it is very close to the dock. So when the explosion went on,
There was an explosion. Tell me about that.
there were 3 big ships full of cargo. So one of the ships caught fire and it blew. So all that firework and came and fall on the buildings everywhere. And the buildings caught fire. Even our buildings caught fire. So we had to come down and get out of the building.
What did you lose in the fire?
Jewelry, our household things. Even my father-in-law was very rich, and we had everything from Singapore, out of the country, and beautiful things we had. Everything was gone.
You couldn't manage to save anything.
No, we were not able. Nothing, not even a single penny. We were sitting on the roadside.
What were some of the things you lost in the fire?
Yeah, all my jewelry, my clothes, my wedding jewelry from my mother's side, my father-in-law's side, everything. We had nothing.
What kinds of jewelry?
Yeah, gold, silver, diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and pearls. All because my father was very rich man, my father-in-law was very rich man. They had given me lots and lots of jewelry.
So after all was lost, where did you all go?
Yeah, we were sitting on the roadside. So some people came to help us. And they took us to their house and they informed my grandparents. See, so then we went to my grandfather's house, Altamont Road. And we stayed there for a few months. And then we shifted to Santa Cruz.
And this is where you live to this day. You built a bungalow here.
No, the bungalow belonged to my sister-in-law's husband. So it was vacant. So they told us that you come and stay in this house. So we stayed there, and then after some time my father-in-law bought the bungalow, which we are staying now.
The 1950s, often remembered as a decade of prosperity and post-war recovery, were marked by significant social, political, and economic transformations in the United States. Following the devastation of World War II, the country experienced a period of economic growth fueled by consumerism, suburban expansion, and technological advancements. The events of this decade not only shaped the course of American history, but also profoundly impacted the lives of individuals and families. For my ancestors, the 1950s presented both new opportunities and challenges. This section will explore their personal experiences, focusing on how they navigated the evolving social dynamics and political shifts of the era. My great-grandfather, John DeBenedictis, was born in Union City, New Jersey on August 9, 1920. He was the third of 5 children born to Louis DeBenedictis, one of the original DeBenedictis family who emigrated to America at the turn of the century. Like most of that extended family, John grew up in Union City, a small town populated by mostly Italian and German immigrants. John was an affable child, got above average grades in school, and attended church every Sunday. The DeBenedictis family got together often, with over 100 aunts, uncles, and cousins now living in or around Union City. When World War II came, like so many men John's age, he enlisted into the army. It was here that luck smiled on John. He went through basic training and was then assigned to an Army Air Force unit in Argentina. The US deployed a small contingent of soldiers in strategic locations, but in reality, there was no military action, and the soldiers there merely served as a deterrent to any Axis forces to attempt to land in the Western Hemisphere. John was a mess sergeant and led the morning exercise drills. Unlike his uncle Henry, who was killed in Europe, or his brother Henry, who saw active combat serving in the South Pacific, John's war was uneventful, except for his marriage to his pre-war sweetheart, Frances, during one of his furloughs. After the war, there were millions of young American men returning from the war who needed good-paying jobs and to acclimatize back to civilian life. The US government underwrote huge public work projects and re-education programs such as the GI Bill, as well as supporting the construction of tens of thousands of family homes across the country. The 1950s and 60s were a golden age of prosperity for Americans, and John and his family enjoyed the benefits of this boom in standard of living of the middle class. When John returned home from the war, he made several important decisions that would significantly alter the trajectory of his life. He went to work for a bank in New York City. This was a white-collar career, and he was one of the first in his family to pursue this type of work. By the late 1960s, his family had grown to include 3 children, and towards the end of the decade, he made the decision to move out of Union City and to purchase a house in Dumont, New Jersey. Dumont was a more middle-class suburban town, had good schools, and very little crime. 2 large avenues bisected the town into neighborhoods with a central main street with stores, offices, and churches, and had a beautiful tree-lined park where kids from all over Dumont came to play baseball in the spring and football in the fall. It was an all-American town in the all-American post-war era. It was from there that his son Paul would follow in his footsteps to work in banking. That career led Paul to frequently travel and eventually work overseas. Peter, his son, and my father got a world-class education living in Dubai, graduated from a top university, and has had a successful corporate career. I wonder if all of that would have been possible had John seen combat in World War II. What would have happened if he had stayed in Union City or not pursued his banking career? I think about his uncle Henry, who was just a few years older than John, but died on the cold battlefields in Belgium, who never had the opportunity to have the same kind of life my great-grandfather did. Oh, how fate can bestow such fortune on some, but tragedy on others.
In this section, we will examine the life of my great-grandfather, Asghar Ali Nazar Ali Tayyab Ali Singaporewala. Unlike my great-grandmother, Asghar Ali was not born in India, but rather in Singapore in 1914. He was part of the Bohras, a Shiite sect of Gujarati-speaking Muslims, descended from 11th century Hindu converts. Bohras often took the last name of the businesses or work they were famous for, like Smith, Mason, or Miller in English. The name Singaporewala means of Singapore, reflecting his family's connection to the island, which remained significant throughout his life. As a young boy, he witnessed his father, Nazar Ali Tayyab Ali, build a fortune as a trader in Singapore. Nazar Ali was originally from Ujjain in India and had travelled to Singapore in the early 20th century to establish his business. This company traded in food grains, yarn, and spices, marking the start of a family legacy in trade and commerce. He became extremely wealthy and successful, much like Muhammad Ali had in Ethiopia and East Africa. The early years of Asghar Ali's life were undoubtedly shaped by his father's ambitions. Nazar Ali's decision to leave India and settle in Singapore created a new life for the family, grounded in the traditions of business and perseverance. Asghar Ali's educational journey began in Singapore, but it was his move to England at around the age of 17 that would mark a turning point in his career. He studied in the prestigious London School of Economics before continuing his studies in law. His legal education culminated in him being called to the bar at the Inner Temple at the age of 24. This is the same initial career path that both Mahatma Gandhi and Nehru, India's first Prime Minister, took. It was a significant achievement for Asghar Ali that set him on the path to becoming a barrister. The family's life in Singapore was disrupted by the outbreak of the Japanese occupation in 1942, forcing them to leave the city. Asghar Ali was a professional barrister by then, already living in India at the time with his wife Nemrut and their children. During the 1950s, he became a prominent lawyer in Bombay amongst the Muslim community, representing both his own family's business interests as well as other clients. He was a senior member of the community mosque and a member of the Freemasons, which marked him as an individual of standing in both social and professional circles. Asghar Ali became a wealthy property owner with buildings and commercial real estate in some of the best parts of the city of Bombay. Arguably the most defining and challenging episode in Asghar Ali's professional life emerged with the GM Muhammad Ali & Co case, a high-profile legal dispute that placed both his career and reputation under immense scrutiny. The case posed a serious threat to his standing within the legal community as it brought intense public and professional attention, testing not only the depth of his legal expertise but also the strength of his personal resistance. Despite ultimately being honorably acquitted of all charges, the ordeal left an indelible mark upon him. The experience appeared to have prompted a profound reassessment of his professional path, as he chose never to return to the legal practice thereafter. This moment stands as a pivotal turning point in his life, symbolizing both the vulnerability and the fortitude of a man caught in the intersection of ambition, controversy, and personal conviction.
I'm Hasina Shahani, daughter of Asghar Ali Nazar Ali Tayyab Ali Singaporewala.
Okay, so what stories did your father share about you with his childhood in Singapore?
He did talk about his days in Singapore, and what I can remember is about his school days. He talked about his principal's office, where if you entered, you see these canes behind his desk, numbered canes. And if you broke any of the rules and you happened to go to his office and you were called to his office, you would, those canes would be, you would probably get a whip with one of the numbered canes on your outstretched hand. So I remember that really well. And they worked hard at school, and he talked about how when he was at school and during his exams, he tied his hair to the back of the chair so that in case at night when he was studying, and in case he fell asleep and nodded off, he'd wake up with a jerk. So this showed that they worked hard. They worked hard at school.
So, what did the name Singaporewala mean to your father? And was he proud of the name and its symbolism?
The name, our family name is Tayyab Ali. My grandfather, when he went to Singapore, and when he lived there and when he came back to India, I think he came to be known as Singaporewala, which means from or off. Wala stands for from or off Singapore. So that's how, and yes, I think they were proud because my grandfather had achieved a lot in his lifetime in Singapore. So this name just stuck on and it just became part of our family history.
So, do you know what inspired your father to study at the London School of Economics and become a lawyer?
My father was, he had a brilliant mind and an amazing recall of facts and figures. He was very interested in history, had a flair for the English language. So I think it kind of he just went into that path where he studied economics and history and law. I think it was like just made for him.
So did he share any memories of his time in London, especially during those formative years?
I don't remember any stories about London except I do remember him talking about where he lived in London, which right now I have forgotten, and his landlady, he lived in a little apartment, I think in the basement, and in winter it was really cold, and his landlady was a very kind lady. So just little snippets of this kind of, but nothing much.
How was he viewed in the Boer community? How was a special festival celebrated at home?
Oh, my father was a highly respected and prominent member of the Boer community because he was highly educated and had returned as a barrister. And one of my most fondest and lovely memories of a special Eid day at home was when I woke up in the morning and to the to the fragrance of bukur and oud in the house, sheer korma cooking, and my dad all dressed in his white mal aba, crisp white mal aba with this knitted bori topi, all ready to go to the mosque for the Eid khutbah, the pre-Eid prayers. And but we didn't go to the mosque. We stayed at home and we prayed at home. And when he returned from the mosque, there was a lot of excitement because all kids at home and everyone, the family were all dressed in their new clothes and new shoes and all ready to receive my dad, because also we got Eid on that day. Eid is the special, the money, which you get when you do your salam. So there was a lot of excitement, and then we were all dressed and my father drove us to the Maulana's residence, to Saifi Mahal, to do salam out there. So these are very special memories I have of my dad.
And so what did your father study when he was in London?
He graduated from LSE, the London School of Economics, and he was admitted to the Middle Temple in 1935 and called to the bar in 1941. So he was a barrister.
How was life under Japanese occupation in Singapore in 1942, and how did it impact your family's life?
I think the Japanese occupation did impact a lot, because that's the time when they did come back to India. But also I remember my uncle and my dad talking about that it was the occupying power was very cruel, and like they would catch people on the streets and hurt them in trucks, and they were taken away, they didn't know where. Also, if you listen to the news on the radio, they would take these two sharp pencils and push them into your ears from the two ends, and I mean there was a lot of cruelty.
Was this on the Singapore radios when they were living? They would hear about this.
Yeah.
Okay. And how did he view his membership in the Freemasons? Was it something he spoke about often?
We did know about it because my dad would get all ready and dressed and go for his lodge, as he called it, to attend the meetings or whatever. And I remember he had this little book. From very often he would memorize passages and things, but we were never given and we were never allowed to look at it. But it was part of his lodge, whatever meetings that he attended. And this was very important for him. So like he was a Grand Steward, and this was one of the certificates that he got at that time. So this is something I just found later in his cupboard. So that was a very important part of his life. And these are some of the medals. It has his name engraved at the back. So this is what we found in his cupboard later. So one did hear a lot about the lodge that he was attending meetings there.
Okay. And what can you tell me about the G.M. Muhammad Ali case? How did your father react to it at the time?
I was very young, so I don't know much about it, but I heard about it later. And I think he got involved in the case because his father-in-law was a partner in the Muhammad Ali and Company. Kera was a partner, so that's how he got involved in the case, because he was a young barrister who had just returned from England, and I think that's how he got involved in the case, to fight the case.
And how would you describe his character in a few words?
My father, he was a brilliant mind, a wise man, fearless, a man of faith and great fortitude, but totally fearless. I would say a beloved, doting father, and I think he treated his wife like real royalty and a queen. A kind man.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. As our journey through history comes to an end, we're reminded that the past is never truly gone. It lives on in the stories we tell, the values we inherit, and the paths we walk today. From war-torn landscapes to times of hardship and resilience, the lives of my ancestors are more than just chapters in a family tree. They are living reminders of perseverance, sacrifice, and hope. By tracing their footsteps, I have not only uncovered the legacy that they left behind, but also deepened my understanding of who I am. In exploring their stories, I have found a bridge between continents, between generations, and between history and identity. History, as I've come to learn, is not just about what happened, it's about why it matters. And through this documentary, I hope I've shown that our roots, though scattered across time and geography, continue to shape who we are and how we see the world. Thank you for joining me on this personal and historical voyage, one that reminds us that in discovering our past, we better understand our present and perhaps can shape a more meaningful future. This has been Roots Across Continents, a journey through family history. Thank you for watching.